This video program was put together to help you and your employees understand more about our Brush Bandit chipper. This videotape will cover the safe operation and maintenance of the Brush Bandit. The first section covers safety procedures and the proper operation. One of the most important aspects of this videotape is to stress safety while maintaining and operating the Brush Bandit. We have experienced only 4 accidents resulting from the operator reaching into the in-feed spout of the chipper to insert short lengths of material. In 2 cases, the accidents caused loss of limbs. We warn operators with decals on the machine as well as in the operator's manual. We warn you now, do not reach into the in-feed spout of the machine. If you have any Brush Bandit with a serial number lower than 1093 and have not installed a 1-foot extension on the in-feed spout, please do it right away. This will help prevent neglectful operators from reaching into the in-feed wheels of the machine. Just give our parts department a call to obtain the 1-foot extension. The Bandit is manufactured with every consideration of safety in mind. The machine is equipped with belt guards, safety decals, disc lock, and a rugged design for less chance of an accident. Regardless of how hard a manufacturer tries to produce a safe machine, accidents still happen. Normally, accidents are caused by people making mistakes. They do not read the manual, they ignore warning decals, or do not use lockouts provided for their safety. This normally happens after the person has become accustomed to the machinery. In the initial startup and operation of the machinery, they are cautious. They are very careful because they do not understand the machine. Don't ever take the machine for granted. This is when an accident will happen. The machine is designed to do a job, and it does it well. The chipper disc turns very fast and can be dangerous. The feed wheels are designed to pull limbs and branches into the chipper. They really do not know the difference between a branch or a hand. They just do their job. These expressions are not to scare anyone. We just hope that operators and mechanics alike follow our suggestions for safety and use the Bandit in the safest manner possible. When first hooking the chipper to your truck, make sure the latch is secured. Also, make sure to have a good coating of grease on the pintle ring. This will slow down on the wear of your ring. Always hook the safety chains to the vehicle. Always check the in-feed chute for foreign material such as tools, chains, and other material. Before starting the machine, always check the direction the chip discharge chute is pointed. Make sure it is not pointing in a direction that would injure someone. Flying chips are very dangerous. Always check to make sure the chipper hood pin is properly latched. Each day, check the hood hinge for damage. If the hood is slammed to the open position, the hinge can become damaged. Never operate the chipper with a damaged hinge. This may allow the cutter wheel to hit the chipper hood. Should this happen, someone could be severely injured. Do not operate the Brush Bandit unless you are equipped with a hard hat, safety glasses, and gloves. Never wear loose clothing such as long shirts, or especially bad is neckties or anything attached to your body that dangles and can be caught by brush. Keep your shirt tucked into your pants. Never start the engine until you have checked the engine oil level, the water level, and the fuel level. Never fill the fuel tank to the top. You should leave 3 or 4 inches to allow for fuel expansion. Always check around the machine to make sure everyone is clear. Always pull the front control lever all the way forward to the reverse position before starting the machine. Always start the engine at idle speed. Allow the engine to come up to operating temperature. Check to make sure the engine has adequate oil pressure and that the voltmeter is charging properly. In cold weather, allow the hydraulic system to operate for 10 full minutes before using the machine. Again, visually check to make sure everyone is clear of the machine. Bump the clutch lever 2 or 3 times to allow the cutter wheel to start turning. Once the wheel is turning, push the lever to the full engaged position. Do not slip the clutch because this will burn the clutch plates. When you fully engage the lever, the machine will shake quite excessively, but will not hurt anything. By engaging fully, you are protecting your clutch plates. If your clutch engages quite easily, you must shut the engine off and readjust the tension on the clutch plates. PTO manufacturers refer to specific torques for proper plate tension. Most of us do not have the tools to properly measure this torque. Be advised, if it doesn't take much of your strength to engage the clutch, you need to readjust it. This is especially true when your machine is new because the clutch plates are wearing in. 99.9% of clutch failures are caused by improper plate tensioning, engaging at too high engine RPMs, or by slipping the clutch during engagement. In any case, it is your money that someone is throwing away. Foremost Fabrications offers over 10 different models of engines. Various engines use different models and types of PTO units. For this reason, it would be very confusing to show the adjustment and maintenance of each PTO unit. We would recommend that you refer to your particular manual for proper instructions. Do not attempt to do any maintenance to the clutch until the engine key has been removed, the cutter wheel has come to a complete stop, and the chipper disc lock is inserted into position. When feeding wood into your brush Bandit, try to walk up to the machine on the right side of the material. Limbs have a tendency to move to the left as they are feeding into the machine. By standing on the right side of your material, you are free to turn to your right and get more material without stumbling over the limb feeding into the machine. Never reach into the infeed spout so as to place your hands in danger of becoming tangled with the feed rolls. As you can see, the machine is easily fed from the outer edge of the infeed chute. The feed rolls have very sharp teeth that grab the wood and pull it in. The feed rolls are turned by hydraulic motors. They have enough power to pull a 40-foot long tree into the machine. You can imagine the damage they could do to the operator's hand or foot should they get between the upper and lower feed rolls. Do not do what this operator is doing. He has pieces of short material that he is trying to push into the feed rolls. He is definitely asking for trouble. There is no reason to try to feed this short material into the feed rolls. It is very easy to feed short material while the longer limbs and branches are feeding through. Simply toss the short material into the infeed chute on top of the longer material. The wheels will then take anything and everything into the machine. The very short material and leaves should be shoveled up or picked up and thrown into the truck. Whatever the reason that you come up with that places your hand or foot close to the feed rolls is wrong. There is never any reason to reach or push your foot into the infeed spout of the machine. If for some reason the infeed becomes plugged or wood gets hung up in the feed rolls, shut the machine off. Remove the engine key. Wait until the cutter wheel comes to a complete stop. Remove the chipper hood pin and install it into the disc lock. Then and only then are you safe to unclog the feed rolls. Whenever you have to work inside the chipper throat, always unbolt both hold down springs and block the two wheels open on the left side. Then always hook a chain from the handle on the chipper hood to the handle on the top wheel yoke. This will ensure that the top wheel cannot come down. Always remove the engine key, wait for the cutter wheel to stop turning, and install the disc lock. Never open the chipper hood while the chipper is turning, and never start the chipper with the hood open. If the hood is open while the cutter wheel is turning, it can hit the wheel and become dislodged. Should this happen, the hood could hit someone and severely injure them. Also, flying debris from the cutter wheel could also injure someone. Do not do this. Whenever a guard is removed for service, replace it immediately. Guards are made to protect you. They will do no good laying on the ground or in the shop. Keep a first aid kit at the machine at all times. We all know how important this may be. Whenever you are unhooking the machine, make sure that you let the tongue jack down first and take the weight of the tongue off the vehicle. Make sure the jack is pinned securely. Whenever your jack is damaged, replace it immediately. It is the customer's responsibility to maintain all fuel lines and connections. It's also a very good idea to check for loose fittings, leaks, etc. before the start of the day. And do not fill the top 3 or 4 inches of the fuel tank. This will allow for fuel expansion. And as always, keep a fire extinguisher on the job at all times. Whenever you have occasional large diameter material to chip, always start a smaller diameter piece ahead of the larger one. The smaller piece will easily open the feed wheels. Then it will also be much easier to follow with the larger diameter because the wheels are partially opened. When chipping a lot of larger diameter material, simply stop the infeed before the piece goes completely through. Then position the next large piece right behind the one stopped in the wheels. Start chipping and follow right in with the new piece. This makes feeding the larger diameters much easier. The brush Bandit engine will lug down on large diameter trees, or because the chipper knives are dull, or because the engine is not operating properly. Do not let the engine lug down too far because the chip discharge chute will become plugged. Listen to the engine and stop the wood flow before the engine drops too low. Do not over-tighten the top feed roll hold-down springs. Over-tightening will cause the hydraulic system to overwork and also cause the chipper to feed improperly. If the wheels spin excessively on the wood, this would indicate a need to tighten the springs a little. When chipping all larger diameters, it would be a good idea to loosen the springs all the way. To obtain the best production, don't stand and watch the wood feed through the machine. After you insert the wood into the feed rolls, turn away and get more and pile it right on whatever is going through. The only time you need to wait is if you have to put a rough piece in that may need attention to get it through. Once you get used to operating a chipper, you'll get a good feel for the proper way to inject rough material, so you don't have to fight with it. You will also know the pieces that will not go through the machine, so there is no reason to fight with material. This takes time and costs money. Simply lay it aside and trim it with the chainsaw. This part of our videotape will explain proper maintenance for your brush Bandit. All of the safety procedures, operation, and maintenance are fully explained in the manual. We would suggest that you purchase enough books for each one of your operators to have. Books do not do much good sitting on someone's shelf. Maintaining the brush Bandit is fairly simple. In fact, you'll find that it's one of the easiest pieces of equipment you own. Please don't overlook the maintenance that is required. It'll pay you back many, many times over. Over 50% of all accidents happen while someone is working on the machine. A careless operator leaves the engine running, and someone else accidentally turns something on. Please never attempt any type of maintenance unless the key is removed from the engine, the cutter wheel has come to a complete stop, and the disc lock has been installed. Many people ask the same question. How long do the knives last in the brush Bandit before they become dull? Well, there's no answer to this question. It all depends on how much dirt and grit goes through the machine. It also depends on the type of wood you are chipping, such as hardwood, softwood, green, or dry. It is guaranteed, though, the knives will last longer in poplar than when chipping hickory. Whatever the reason the knives are dull, change them. Dull knives make bad chips, waste fuel, cause the machine to vibrate excessively, and causes the hydraulic system to overwork and heat. Dull knives generally overwork the machine and slow production. The good news is the brush Bandit doesn't require much time to change knives. Shut the engine off. Let the cutter wheel coast to a full stop. Remove the chipper hood pin and insert it in the disc lock position. Changing knives is best done with two people. One to hold the Allen head bolt on the face of the knife, and one person to operate the ratchet on the downstream side of the cutter wheel. Whenever you are handling the chipper knives, wear gloves. The knives are very sharp and could cut you. Use a long-handled 3/8 inch ratchet and a 1/2 inch socket. Remove the 6 nuts that hold the knife bolts tight. Do not use these self-locking nuts over 5 times. After that, they will not stay tight. Once the dull knives are removed, check and clean the surface the knife rests on. Do not allow material between the two surfaces. The brush Bandit knife has dual edges, so you can simply rotate to the good new edge. When aligning the two knives together, they may not fit perfectly. This is because they need a small amount of free play and because of knife tolerances. Fit them together as close as possible and tighten. If they don't fit together, it will not affect the chipper action of the machine. The operation manual states that the chipper knives should be torqued to 90 foot-pounds. We realize that most people don't carry a torque wrench around with them, so just give a good steady pull on your 3/8 inch ratchet. You do not have to crank hard on the wrench. This has always worked good for us, so we assume it will work good for you. After the knives have been properly bolted into position, always turn the cutter wheel in reverse a couple of times to make sure everything is clearing properly. Caution, be very careful doing this. Even when the wheel is turning slow, it will severely damage fingers and hands. This is because of the weight of the wheel. Make sure your hands are clear. A good tip to increase your knife life is to dress the knife before you install it. Place the knife in a vise with the edge pointing upwards. Usually the knife is so sharp you'll not be able to see the edge. Now, using a number 10 bastard mill file, take the very edge off the knife. Take it down to the width of a ballpoint pen line. Then go to the flat side of the knife and file on a 45-degree angle back to the point. This takes only a few swipes of the knife. Do not overdo, or the chipper will not feed properly. By doing this, your knives will last considerably longer. Another good tip to increase your knife life is to dress the edge of the knife right in the machine. Do it in the morning, noon, or at night, or all 3 times. The more you do it, the longer the edge will last, and the better the machine will perform. It only takes a few minutes. Remember, follow the advised safety procedures for maintenance. This is the last time we'll harp to you about removing the engine key, waiting for the cutter wheel to come to a complete stop, and installing the disc lock pin. Please remember that all the things we talk about in this videotape require this procedure to be followed. Don't let an accident happen to you. We will explain the things that are suggested to do on a daily basis with the Brush Bandit. Check the tension of the pump belt daily. It certainly will not require tightening daily, but will fool you and make you think that you have a hydraulic problem. The belt will slip a little when the feed wheels are working the hardest. Otherwise, you won't notice it. So you'll think something is wrong with the system because the wheels do not take the wood properly. The belt can be tightened from the bottom of the machine. You do not have to remove the belt shield. Please refer to the manual for proper tensioning advice. Check the tightness of the chipper belts. If the belts are allowed to operate in a loose condition, they will slip and glaze over. Once this happens, they are ruined and must be replaced. Do not over-tighten glazed belts to try and get by. To tighten the chipper belts, you must loosen all 4 engine bolts. Then, draw the engine back evenly using the engine puller bolts. Please refer to the manual for proper tensioning advice. Do not over-tighten. This will ruin your clutch because of excessive side load. Also remember that new belts will require much more attention during the stretching and break-in time. Chipping wood is a dirty business. Check your air cleaner daily. Clean and replace as needed. We all know what happens to an engine operating with a dirty air filter. Check your PTO for proper engagement tension daily. Just remember this: if it isn't taking most of your strength to engage the clutch, it needs adjustment. This would be over-center clutches only. Spring-loaded clutches adjust automatically. Check your radiator for debris and clean it often. If you do not have a dirt screen, as we have shown, you should order one and install it on your engine. It'll save a lot of dirt and dust from entering your radiator. Check your hydraulic oil level daily. Do not operate the machine if the level is low. This will cause premature wear in all of your hydraulic components. Always clean the top of the hydraulic tank off and use a good funnel with a screen to add oil. Please refer to your manual for proper types of hydraulic oil to use. Grease the PTO throwout bearing with 1 shot of grease daily. We found that this will give you the best bearing life. Do not give over 1 shot or grease will get all over the inside of your PTO and eventually get to your clutch plates. Some engines have sealed for life pilot bearings, some don't. If there is a grease zert in the very end of the PTO shaft, refer to your clutch manual and grease accordingly. If there is no grease zert or provisions for grease, don't worry about it. This part of our video program will explain weekly maintenance. Please understand we cannot catch everything. If you have found particular items that seem to loosen up more than others, add them to your list and check them either daily or weekly. Grease each feed roll bearing with 1 shot of grease per week. The wheels turn fairly slow and do not require a lot of grease. Over-greasing will put the dust seals out of the bearings and cause premature failure. Grease both chipper bearings once a week. You can't over-grease these bearings. Purge them to remove all old grease. Check all bolts on the cutter wheel for proper tightness. This includes the fan blades, the draw ring, and the front bearing retainer bolt. Also check other bolts on the machine, such as feed roll bearings, hydraulic pump mount, shield, and so on. Bolts will loosen because of normal machine vibration. Once a week, check the battery for proper liquid levels. Use distilled water only. Also check battery cables for possible shorts and wear. Also, check the tires for wear and the spring and suspension for possible loose bolts. Each week, check all connections and fittings on the fuel system of the machine. This is also a good time to check for wires that may be loose or worn in the engine area. A year ago, the Brush Bandit experienced a few problems with the feed roll motors loosening from the feed roll shaft. We have cured that problem by using the Loctite product number RC609. It still would be a good idea to make sure these motors are tight. If your motors are coming loose, we would recommend ordering the Loctite product from us. We have small tubes for this reason. This is a special product for this type of application only. If your feed roll hole is wallowed out and looks like this, we have an inexpensive remedy. Rather than purchasing a whole new roll, cut each end of the shaft off, either in a saw or carefully with a torch. Slide a new shaft in and weld both ends. Make sure all slag is cleaned from the ends of the wheel before welding in the new shaft. Also make sure you purchase the proper Loctite to hold the motor properly in place. The feed plate anvil, or sometimes called a cutter bar, should be checked weekly for clearance. A simple way to do this is to place a flashlight into the chipper throat. Open the chipper hood, and one person can look down to the anvil and turn the cutter wheel so the chipper knife will move to the edge of the anvil. You look down between the front of the cutter wheel and the edge of the chipper base. A second person can adjust the anvil in or out at the top and bottom according to what the other person sees. The clearance should be approximately 1/16 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch, but is not critical to the performance of the machine. Always double check the clearance after the anvil has been retightened. Always turn the wheel in reverse a couple of times to ensure proper clearance. If your chips start to look bad by being too large and long slivers, your anvil edge will need to be rebuilt. Use a piece of brass along the edge of the anvil to keep the edge. Then build the anvil up with weld. After welding up, grind the edge square. Use a hard surface material for better wear characteristics. Too many customers totally ignore the anvil and never adjust it or rebuild or replace it. This is very hard on the chipper and will cause excessive vibration to the entire machine. Think of your knife and anvil as a pair of scissors. The scissors won't cut very well if the bottom blade was worn and out of adjustment. The working edge of your anvil will wear and become rounded. Refer to page number 33 in your manual for rebuilding instructions. Keep this edge sharp and your machine will function properly. The next part of our video program will explain maintenance and should be performed each 3 months. The top wheel yoke has 4 Ryertex plastic slides used to prevent wear to the metal parts of the yoke. This plastic wears very slowly but should be checked and replaced when needed. Check all areas of the chipper housing and chipper fan blades for wear. These parts all wear for a very long time but should be checked periodically. Check the chipper and pump drive system. Check the belts for wear as well as the sheaves. This is a good time to check the sheave alignment with a straight edge. Check the torque on the chipper sheave and the pump sheave bushing. This is an easy time to check your pump mount bolts for proper torque. While the belt guard is off, check the torque of the chipper rear bearing bolts and the set screws in the rear bearing. The set screws are to be torqued at 40 foot-pounds, and it is very important that you check them. We have experienced a few that have come loose. When this happens, the bearing will spin on the shaft. This, of course, ruins the chipper shaft and bearings. It is very important to remove the belt guard and do this maintenance every 3 months. Too many people let this go and then wonder why the bearing housing breaks or why the bearing spins on the chipper shaft. It's because things loosen up on a wood chipper from vibration. Remove the front bearing guard and torque the front bearing bolt to 200 foot-pounds. This bearing retainer is very important because it keeps the cutter wheel from moving in the chipper housing. Even though we recommend inspecting the hood hinge daily, this is a very good time to give both the hinge and the hood pin receptacles a good inspection. Make sure that the hood opens and closes properly and that the hinge does not bind. Also, make sure the hinge pin is welded on both ends. This section of our video will cover the Brush Bandit hydraulic system. It is a very simple circuit to maintain or troubleshoot. Each component is capable of withstanding 2,500 psi and still last several years. We have a few common sense rules we would ask that you follow. Do not operate the machine with low oil. This will cause the system to cavitate and heat excessively. Do not increase the relief valve setting above 2,500 psi. If this is done, you will experience hydraulic component failure. Keep your hydraulic oil clean. Dirty oil will cause damage to the system. Always clean around the opening before pouring the oil. Always use a funnel with a good strainer. Change the hydraulic oil filter after 1 week's operating time and at least 3 times a year thereafter. If you operate in very hot or cold climates, you may change the hydraulic oil to fit the temperature. 30 weight in hot temperature, and 10 weight in cold temperature. Replace the hydraulic oil and clean the tank once a year. Oil breaks down and wears out just as it does in your car. The hydraulic tank will draw moisture and make water. Whenever you replace the oil, clean the tank and the outlet screw thoroughly. Flush the tank with solvent and drain completely. Clean the strainer with solvent and blow out with an air hose. The owner is required to readjust the hydraulic pressure and clean the flow divider cartridge each 3 months. As the relief valve spring weakens, the relief valve must be adjusted to keep the system working properly. The flow divider is the only place in the system that can trap contaminants. Once they are trapped inside the flow divider cartridge, the system will not operate properly. To adjust the relief valve setting, you must have a pressure gauge that reads to 3,000 psi. Unhook both hoses coming out of the flow divider. Cap one off and use a coupling and pipe bushing to install the pressure gauge into the other hose. Make sure the control handle is in the proper position to direct the oil into the hose with the pressure gauge. Make sure your engine is running at about 2/3 throttle when you are setting the pressure. Use a 5/8 inch wrench to open the end cap on the relief valve located on the side of the main valve. Now use a fairly large screwdriver to turn the spring adjusting screw. Turning clockwise increases system pressure. Read the pressure gauge while turning the screw until the gauge reaches 2,500 psi. If the relief setting is low or the relief is partially stuck open, the system will not operate properly. The feed wheels will stop too easily. If you cannot achieve the system pressure, 2,500 psi, you should remove the adjusting screw, the spring, and the round pressure ball. Run the pump for a few seconds, then reassemble. This will clean out any contaminants that could keep the ball from seating properly. The flow divider is designed to equally divide the oil between both hydraulic feed motor wheels. If the internal cartridge has contaminants inside, the oil cannot divide properly. This will cause one or the other feed roll to stop when it shouldn't. This is why the flow divider cartridge must be periodically cleaned or when the feed wheels malfunction. We have a complete breakdown of the flow divider in the operator's manual. We will show you how to disassemble, but would recommend reading the book also. Step number 1. Remove the flow divider cartridge by unscrewing the hex nut cap. Step 2. Unscrew the cartridge canister from the hex cap by carefully using pliers. Step number 3. Carefully check the O-rings for cracks or wear. Replace if necessary. The internal components usually are stuck inside the canister. Step number 4. To remove, use a flat pointed punch through the hole in the non-threaded end of the canister to tap parts out. Step number 5. Unhook the equalizers from each other and pull apart to complete the disassembly. Then clean thoroughly in solvent and reassemble. Your operator's manual has a very good hydraulic system troubleshooting guide. We recommend that you read it when you encounter a problem. We will try to highlight some of the most common problems encountered. One of the most common problems is a slipping pump belt. This is especially true with a new machine because the belt stretches when new. Tighten the pump belt until you reach 3/8 inch belt deflection in the center. Do not over-tighten or the pump shaft will break. Most all problems show up by the fact that the feed wheels are not performing properly. When this happens, first check the belts. Then check and reset hydraulic pressure as previously explained. If you cannot obtain system pressure and the pump belt is tight, more than likely you have a defective or worn hydraulic pump. If the hydraulic pump isn't defective, then the main valve is the problem causing the oil to bypass the system. The next item to check is the flow divider as previously shown. If the flow divider is over a year old, the orifices may be worn and the entire cartridge must be replaced. Make sure whenever you are troubleshooting to check the hydraulic oil level. This may have been your only problem. The last item that could be causing a problem would be a feed roll hydraulic motor. Without going through very sophisticated checking, we recommend changing the motor. To remove the hydraulic motor, you first remove the hoses and the set screws in the motor shaft. The shaft has 2 set screws. The top feed wheel motor torque arm pin must also be removed. The bottom wheel feed roll motor does not have a torque arm pin. The torque arm bolts must be removed to allow the motor to come out of the feed roll shaft. Each motor shaft has been locked into the feed roll with Loctite. This means the shaft has to be heated with a torch to liquefy the Loctite. Wrap a wet cloth around the motor seal to protect it from heat and then heat the shaft. Now tap around the motor on the tongue arm. The motor should come out. If it doesn't, you'll have to use a piece of wood as a wedge and a pry bar to apply pressure to the motor. Then again, tap around the motor until it dislodges from the feed roll shaft. Before installing a new motor, you must clean the inside of the feed roll shaft with a good solvent. Make sure the hole is thoroughly clean and dry. Then apply Loctite number RC609 to the hydraulic motor shaft. 1 bead around the shaft will do the job. Do not use any other type of Loctite because it won't work. Mike Morey is our parts manager. He carries this special Loctite in his inventory in small tubes. Each tube does 1 motor. If you need some, just give Mike a call and he'll fix you up. All of us at Bandit Industries are very proud of our brush Bandit chippers. Our commitment is to manufacture the highest quality brush chipper on the market. It is also our goal to make our products as safe as possible for you, the owner and operator. We hope that you and your employees heed the warnings we have stressed in this videotape. And we welcome you to visit our factory or give us a call to let us know what you think of our products. We have been able to manufacture a good product because we listen to the people that use the machine every day. We will never quit listening. Thank you for buying our Brush Bandit chipper.